Welcome to Echoes of Africa, where hidden stories, bold voices, and untold truths rise from the heart of the continent. Before you dive in, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because every echo here reveals the Africa they don't want you to see.
Trump told Walmart to, quote, eat the cost of rising tariffs so they can keep prices low for consumers. A retail giant is closing stores. Walmart plans to shut down 269 stores.
World's biggest retailer by volume and profit, that would be Walmart, warned today that it may have to start raising prices later this month due to President Trump's tariff policy.
A quiet shift began unfolding across the global retail landscape, surprising analysts who once believed the United States held an uncheckable lead in the world of consumer dominance. For decades, the American retail model, symbolized most clearly by Walmart, shaped how millions of people viewed shopping, pricing, supply chains, and corporate expansion. But a new trend started rising from a region many investors underestimated for years: Africa's rapidly expanding consumer markets. What startled observers wasn't just Africa's growth, it was the scale, the speed, and the number of global shoppers, entrepreneurs, and companies redirecting their attention toward African markets that had once been dismissed as too small, too volatile, or too risky. Suddenly, Africa was no longer on the periphery of global commerce. It was becoming the next frontier of economic excitement, a development that created comparisons, headlines, and conversations that questioned whether the U.S. retail giants could maintain their relevance in a world where Africa's middle class was exploding. And this wasn't speculation. It was happening through investments, supply chain shifts, tech migration, market studies, and a surge of new African retail hubs reshaping the continent. The African Development Bank projected that by 2030, Africa's combined consumer and business spending will exceed $6.7 trillion, more than double current levels. Retail brands from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East began repositioning themselves early, recognizing the continent's youthful population, rising incomes, explosive urbanization, and technology adoption that skipped old systems entirely. In contrast, U.S. retailers appeared slower, more cautious, and more hesitant to expand aggressively into African markets. This created a perception, true or not, that America was losing ground. African consumers became some of the fastest adopters of mobile payments on Earth, creating new economic ecosystems where small businesses thrived alongside global brands. Startups built super apps that merged shopping, banking, transport, and delivery into seamless digital experiences, something even the American retail system struggled to replicate. The irony was striking. The U.S. built the blueprint for the modern retail system, but Africa was redesigning it for the future. The wave of attention intensified when large numbers of diaspora communities and international buyers started sourcing from African markets directly, bypassing traditional American retail chains. Fashion brands in West Africa built global cult followings. Beauty products from the continent gained international demand. Tech devices sold in African markets began shipping abroad through independent logistics networks. And Africa's growing agricultural markets created export flows that started competing with U.S. suppliers. Meanwhile, major Asian companies, especially from China, South Korea, and the UAE, expanded aggressively in Africa. They built logistics hubs, financed retail complexes, partnered with local entrepreneurs, and used Africa as both a production base and a consumer destination. Their early presence gave them the advantage that U.S. companies once had globally. While some U.S. companies continued to perform well, a noticeable gap appeared. Many African shoppers and investors felt American retail giants were too slow to adapt to African realities. Some felt that American corporations didn't fully understand local needs. Others believed African-owned brands finally deserved to compete on equal footing. The narrative grew louder: Africa's market was rising, and those who ignored it would fall behind. This shift wasn't a rejection of American culture. Instead, it was a recognition that consumers wanted something different, something closer, something African. And for the first time in decades, the continent was ready to offer it. Kenya's retail boom demonstrated how local and regional companies could outperform foreign giants. Nigeria's e-commerce revolution showed how youthful populations could transform digital buying faster than most nations. Egypt's manufacturing corridors became global export engines. South Africa's small culture created some of the most advanced retail infrastructures in the developing world. Ethiopia built industrial zones that supplied products to global brands. Rwanda developed smart city retail technologies admired by visiting delegations. Behind the scenes, global institutions conducted studies showing why Africa might become the world's largest growth market. With a median age of 19 and more than 1.4 billion people, Africa held the planet's greatest concentration of young consumers. This demographic advantage became the core of global excitement. Nations with older populations struggled to maintain consumption levels, but Africa's youthful energy created natural demand. Meanwhile, several U.S. corporations quietly shifted certain supply operations toward Africa. Raw materials, textiles, seafood, coffee, cocoa, processed foods, tech components, and agricultural goods began flowing into U.S. markets at higher volumes. American companies relied increasingly on African suppliers, even as African startups and brands competed for global reach. Global retail economists realized something important. Africa wasn't simply rising, it was becoming a global competitor. Compounding the shift were the frustrations among younger consumers in the United States. Many felt prices were rising too quickly, others felt retail options lacked authenticity. Some online communities even promoted African-based vendors and marketplaces as fresher, cheaper, more culturally exciting alternatives. While U.S. giants like Walmart were portrayed as old, oversized, and out of sync with younger generations, they showcased vibrant markets, unique products, business opportunities, and cross-border trade systems that made Africa seem like the new global hotspot. Millions of views poured in from international audiences. Suddenly, Africa felt like a place of economic possibility, not just a region discussed through outdated stereotypes. At the same time, African governments began implementing policies designed to attract global investment. Tax reforms, business registration portals, digital permitting, industrial zones, and trade incentives signaled that Africa wanted a bigger role in global commerce. U.S. companies were welcome, but they had to compete, something they were unused to in many regions. These individuals built retail empires, logistics networks, manufacturing hubs, and food distribution systems that rivaled global competitors. Some began exporting to the West at scale. This reversed an old pattern where Africa only imported from the world. Now, Africa was supplying it. As more global investors redirected attention toward the continent, American analysts warned that ignoring Africa would be a historic mistake. Many argued that the next big retail wave would not come from Europe or Asia but from Africa's rising middle class. And those who failed to participate early risked losing influence forever. The turning point arrived when global corporate reports documented Africa as the fastest growing retail region on Earth. This created a sense of urgency across boardrooms worldwide. Some U.S. companies responded by announcing expansions, others conducted feasibility studies. But for many consumers, especially those seeking new products and more affordable imports, Africa already became a symbol of the future. The story was no longer about people leaving Walmart. The deeper truth was that Africa's rise created new global enthusiasm that even the world's largest retail chain could not ignore. Africa was no longer a passive recipient of global markets, it was becoming a driver. The shift reflected a broader transformation in global economics. Power was decentralizing. New markets were emerging, old models were being challenged. And Africa, for the first time in modern economic history, was becoming a center of gravity rather than an afterthought. As this momentum continues, one thing grows increasingly clear: Africa's retail revolution is real, unstoppable, and globally influential. And as more consumers, investors, and corporations turn toward the continent, the world's economic future may look very different from its past. Africa's rise is not a trend, it is a transformation. And the world's biggest economic powers are watching very closely.
You've been watching Echoes of Africa, where every story carries the sound of tomorrow. If this moved you, subscribe now, like, and share so Africa's voice never fades into silence.